Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA, and I'm happy that you could join us today. Before I welcome today's guest, I'd like to thank our 2024 President's Council sponsors. And these are companies that provide, in addition to their membership, they provide a tremendous amount of financial support to our association, in large part so that we can continue to be a strong voice for the real estate finance industry before the California State Legislature and our regulators. So please join me in thanking this year's President's Council sponsors, and those companies are AmeriHome, Arch MI, CMG Financial, Consolidated Analytics, Funding Shield, Guild Mortgage, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all so much for your support. We greatly appreciate it. And that allows me to turn to today's guests and welcome Tom Wight, who is VP of Mortgage Banking at KeyBank. Tom, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Susan. It's great to get back on a podcast with you.
I'm happy that you could do it. Tom is also one of my board members, so I need to be on my best behavior today because I don't want to get myself in trouble. I always like to get started with a little background. So why don't you tell us how you got into commercial mortgage business?
Well, it took a little while. I think I got started later than some of my peers here. I think I was in my early 30s when I found this sort of niche of the industry, of the commercial real estate industry. But so kind of by accident, I was in business school at Berkeley and took Professor Dennis Williams' class, and he is a mortgage banker at Northmarq, and he was looking for an analyst. So I kind of lucked out timing-wise and started in 2013 as an analyst at Northmarq. And Northmarq, was a great experience. They were great. The folks in that office were great mentors to me. But it was one of those things where you just, starting out, you just get exposed to a lot of different types of properties, a lot of different types of lenders as a mortgage broker. And it was just a great way to kind of kick off my career in the industry.
That's great. Northmarq's wonderful. They've
but...
always been very active with our association, and that kind of leads me to my next question because I get different answers on this. So you come from Northmarq, which is commercial mortgage bank, to KeyBank, a depository. So how was the transition moving to a depository bank?
It's been great. I mean, I had the opportunity to open up the Northern California office for KeyBank in January of 2023. So it's been almost 2 years now. And other than the fact that there are a few more, VPN and apps that I have to download and make sure that all the information is secure and may or may not cause problems with some of the podcast software that we were trying to use earlier, but it's great. My role changed a little bit. So as a commercial mortgage banker at Northmarq, I was really a jack of all trades. I was looking at all different property types, all different types of executions. At KeyBank, I was really hired just to do multifamily agency finance. So agency, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of the jargon that we refer to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and to an extent FHA as well. So I'm really focused on just permanent takeout of multifamily loans. So in a way, it's been great because that's a much more focused area, and I can really kind of dig into the weeds on those types of deals. But I do kind of miss looking at some of the hairier deals that are out there that I used to work on too, like industrial properties or retail or stuff like that. But it's a great industry, so I definitely still get a taste of that from some of my friends in the industry.
What are some of the top priorities for KeyBank for the balance of this year?
KeyBank is in business. We are lending. So I think as a lot of other banks did, we took a little step back when the rise up in interest rates happened. We were never just out of the markets, but we were definitely taking a step back, focused more on our clients. And really that's still our focus is our current clients, making sure that they're set up for the uncertainty that's probably, that's in the world right now, as well as what may happen. So uh, KeyBank's philosophy in the commercial real estate space has really been to use our balance sheet and let clients leverage our balance sheet to purchase property or execute a value add business plan, and then using our my purview would be taking those balance sheet loans out with agency permanent debt. And so that strategy has worked out well over the last few years. And we're continuing to try to, despite the market headwinds and transaction volume being down and all of that, we're still very much in the market and very much uh, continuing that strategy.
Okay, all right. So we talked at the beginning of our conversation. You've had over a decade now in the industry. So what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out?
I started in 2013 when it was kind of at the bottom and the market was ramping up. So I think most people would agree that if you're starting now in the industry, you're kind of, at the peak slash maybe coming down. So it might be a little rocky. And I would say for those of you who are starting, be persistent and be patient. Those would be my two pieces of advice. And there may not be a lot of transaction volume going on right now, but you can use this time to really learn from others, learn from your mentors. Try to get a good mentor would be another one. I'm happy to mentor. I mean, I don't feel like I'm mentor quality necessarily, but for
I
those
wouldn't
of
agree
you
with
who
that.
for those of you who want to just talk talk out strategy or have a idea of what you might want to do for a career in this field, I'm happy to talk to anybody. But yeah, that would be my my advice for what it's worth.
And you're a great networker. When I first met you, I know you have a lot of contacts with a lot of, people in the industry. So I think networking is also a good, suggestion for somebody starting out, start to build that professional network, of people. So,
Absolutely.
we mentioned you're a board member, you're on our board of directors, but this year you were also chair of the Western States CREF Conference. It's been great
Yeah.
working with you, putting that conference together. Of course, our signature event for the commercial real estate finance industry for over 25 years. So we're excited about that coming up in September. Can you share with our listeners a little about some of the hot topics that we'll be covering on this year's agenda?
Yeah, so it's going to be at the ARIA September 4th through 6th, I believe. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it's going to be awesome. I mean, this is, as you said, the premier event for commercial real estate mortgage on the West Coast. We've got I think, some panels that will be very interesting to everybody. So I think one of the most awesome panels that we have is our keynote panel, which is the recording of a Trepwire podcast. So we're on a podcast talking about a podcast, but if I know probably some of our listeners here already are familiar with the Trepwire podcast. For those of you who are not, it's a weekly podcast produced by TREP, which is monitors basically all of the CMBS debt that's out there. And so they talk about distressed assets. They talk about, new leases that have been signed that could support loans that are on their books. They talk about trends, and it's just a great way to learn a lot about a lot of different things very quickly. So we're thrilled to have them recording a live podcast in front of our audience, so we can all experience sort of that process and ask them maybe some hard questions. We'll see. So that's one of the great things. We also, of course, have an economic update. And then we have panels kind of uh, directed towards various different topics. So we have a permanent financing panel. That's going to be great. We have a structured finance panel. We have a distressed debt panel that we're working on putting together. And then, of course, women in real estate, which is a big one. We're going to have some of the icons of the industry there talking about their experiences in unfortunately, a sort of a male-dominated field still, but it's getting better. So it's just going to be a great time. And if you are considering coming to Western States, I would highly recommend you register. It's not that much of a cost, and you get access to all of these different things that you're not going to get if you're just going and networking. We also are still looking for panelists for some of these panels. So if you are, if you work on one of these fields, then please reach out because we're looking for panelists still.
Yeah, that's great. And registration's important. Glad that you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people miss the fact that, the financial support that we get from our conferences and membership help fuel our ability to be an advocate for the industry. So I know the California insurance crisis is something that we've launched a big PR campaign on to highlight how that crisis is impacting the real estate finance industry. And of course, that's only possible through the support for the people that come to our conferences, register, sponsor, and of course their membership. So thank you for pointing that out. I am excited about the Tripwire live podcast. We've never done that at Western States CREF, and they seem like a great group. So I'm really looking forward to that too.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add as well that the California MBA is great. KeyBank supports the California MBA because of all the advocacy that California MBA does for our industry. And we're actually having a welcome reception at the event that's going to be sort of geared towards helping CAMPAC, which is the political action committee that helps support our efforts on that front. And so we're trying to make it a fun sort of welcome. Maybe it's going to be called Tacos and Tequila. We'll see. But definitely invite you all to come to that as well. It's going to be a great time in Vegas.
Thank you. Well, Tom, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks, Susan. And as always, great to talk to you, and really appreciate the invite.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and we'll see you next time on Connect.
Here we go!